Business news this morning, the Bank of England followed the US Fed Reserve overnight, raising interest rates despite the wobbles in the banking industry over the past week. Business editor Mr Greenwood is with me now. Ross, is this perhaps a taste of what the RBA has in store for us when it meets in about 10 days' time?
Well, at least it's got to clarify some of its thinking around inflation and the fight on inflation, especially as we've gone through this past week where banks have really wobbled around the world. Now, overnight, the Bank of England has raised its official cash rate to 4.25%. Remember, here in Australia, the cash rate is sitting at 3.6%, with the Reserve Bank set to meet in a little under 10 days' time. But right now, the fight is about inflation. The expectation is that the central banks and governments will effectively paper over some of the problems and the stresses that are coming in the banking industry, the most significant of which has been the Credit Suisse takeover by UBS. But Andrew Bailey, who is the governor of the Bank of England, he said that it's all about the fight on inflation.
Well, we don't know whether it's going to be the peak. What I can tell you is that we've seen signs of inflation really peaking now, but of course it's far too high. Now, we think it's going to come down sharply, really from the early summer onwards, but we haven't seen that happen yet.
So what about here, Ross? You've said the RBA was too slow to raise rates and the first major central bank to cut them. What does it do?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because money markets had a complete U-turn, especially after that banking crisis. And rather than actually predicting that there would be a rate rise, the chance of that went to zero. And then it started talking about a rate cut. So I can show you this here now. And this is the predictor from the ASX using money markets. And you can see that it actually flicked from no change. It was 100% going back almost a week ago. Then now, rather than looking at increases in rates, it's looking at decreases in rates. And you can see at one stage, in the past couple of days, it was a 32% chance of a rate cut in less than 2 weeks' time. Now that's reduced and is sitting at just 5% chance of a rate cut. So the expectation is from money markets that those rates will be on hold from the Reserve Bank, but most economists still believe that there's another 0.25% increase in rates at least at this time.
Wow, that's an interesting stat there you brought up, Ross. Thanks for that. So on to another breaking story today. The research and short-selling company behind the recent attack on Adani has now set its sights on a company with a big Australian connection, Block. That's the owner of Afterpay.
Indeed, this is a really decent story, this one. Hindenburg Research is a company that attacked Adani, saw its share price fall and its bonds as well. Now, in response, Hindenburg really is under attack itself from Adani, amongst others. Now it's turned to Block, and this is the headline that it's put out today: how inflated user metrics and frictionless fraud facilitation enabled insiders to cash out more than $1 billion. Now, Hindenburg has published this in response. The boss of Block is this man here, Jack Dorsey, who was the founder of Twitter, but also the founder of Block. And you know Block, it's those little squares that are around the place that people use in markets and different places, but also it's Afterpay. It bought Afterpay, and they've said that they will have a significant sort of, if you like, reprisal against Hindenburg as a result. But in the United States, Block shares have fallen by 15%. I just had a quick look. They're down by around 14.5% as we speak. And indeed, remember that these shares trade in Australia because of the connection with Afterpay. So we'll see some of the impact here in Australia as well.
Okay, yeah, we've been running this story this morning too, from one tech giant in hot water to another, Ross, TikTok. But this company, Chinese-owned, fighting for its survival in the US, potentially also down the track here in Australia too.
Yeah, Xu Zichu is the chief executive of TikTok. He fronted this congressional hearing today, where really the links between TikTok, its parent ByteDance, and the Chinese Communist government were trying to be established by the congressmen, who really ultimately might make decisions or recommendations about whether TikTok can continue to exist in the United States. It's expected there'd be a revolution amongst younger users, of which they're suggesting there could be as many as 150 million in the United States. But let's have a little listen of Xu Zichu, the chief executive, really in his defence to try and keep TikTok in America.
Congressman, I said in my opening statement, I think we need to address the problem of privacy. I agree with you. I don't think ownership is the issue here. With a lot of respect, American social companies don't have a good track record with data privacy and user security. I mean, look at Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, just one example.
I can tell you, Pete, the mood from those congressmen was pretty aggressive towards the TikTok chief executive and its fate there and here in the United States because of those links back to the Chinese government is very tenuous right now.
See where that ends up. Ross, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.